Do you think obesity is a problem of calories in, calories out, and so also a problem of willpower? Because if you're consuming more calories than what you should, then you're gonna be obese, and then that's because you're not strong enough. You don't have enough willpower to lose weight, or is there like something else going on?
Yeah, perfect question. So let's start with a child, especially growing up today. They're not responsible for themselves in any way. They don't have a job. They don't have money. They don't get to pick and choose what food they eat. Their parents are feeding them all the food that they're eating. And the typical child growing up, especially in the West, especially in America, is fed absolute garbage, sugar, massive amounts of sugar, massive amounts of refined carbohydrates and seed oils. And these are especially the sugar. I mean, they've done, this is a contestable fact, I suppose, but they say that sugar is 8 times more addictive than cocaine. Even if it's not 8 times more addictive than cocaine, it is more addictive probably than any street drug, recreational street drug. As a matter of fact, they have gotten rats addicted to cocaine. And then when the rats were given a choice between sugar and cocaine, the rats went for the sugar because the sugar was more, more of a reward. It lights up the same reward centers of your brain. It all does. But the sugar lights it up more. So it's more addictive. So by the time the kids are old enough to be responsible for themselves and they're able to make their own choices and decide what food they want to eat and pay for their own food, they're already helplessly addicted. They've been chronically damaged during their formative years. Much of that damage will not easily be repaired if it's repairable at all, because it was during their formative years. Like when you mess a child up in their formative years, that creates lasting, sometimes permanent damage, both physiologically and psychologically. So they're addicted, and they are obese most of the time, and they're chronically ill by the time they're sent off into the world. And then we blame them for not having the willpower to fix themselves, and that's just complete nonsense. It's completely unfair, and the fundamental issue is that problem with sugar, and the problem with the fact that it is a drug, and it is a drug that's marketed as food. So not only is the sugar itself and the carbohydrates itself addictive, but these ultra processed food companies hire chemists to create flavor combinations that create more addiction, and then they concoct these petrochemical artificial flavors and sweeteners that are more addicting, and they add all that into it, and it's just basically drugs marketed as food. It's not food at all. I refuse to really call it food unironically. If I call it food, I'll throw the quote fingers up. It's not food at all. Then these kids have grown up not eating food at all, and then they're told, now you're responsible for yourself, eat less, move more, control yourself. And it's just complete nonsense. And the energy balance hypothesis of fat. First of all, fat, is not the only thing that should concern you with your diet. Everybody's obsessed with just eat less, and you'll lose fat. And nobody ever talks about how you're actually nourishing your body and nourishing your endocrine system and nourishing your brain
Of
and
course.
all of the things you need to function that are so far beyond just how much food you eat. It's absolutely
Mhm.
ridiculous.
Yeah, of
Um,
course, because you see also those like raw vegans, they're super skinny,
yeah,
or bodybuilders, they're super lean, but they have a bunch of health issues.
yeah. So yeah, that's not the end all be all. That's not the place you should be starting from. I always tell people the last thing you should ever want to do is try to lose weight. I mean, because first of all, you could lose bone mass, you can lose lean muscle mass, you can lose water weight, you can cut your hair, you can cut off a limb. There's all kinds of ways you can lose weight. You want to lose fat. But if you have excess body fat, you almost certainly have a whole plethora of other chronic metabolic disorders that you also need to take care of that are just as dangerous. It's all linked to the same common fundamental root cause, and it's not caloric intake. First of all, if you look at the first law of thermodynamics that everybody likes to cite, that most of them probably don't even know what it means. They just say it's energy in, energy out. Okay, if it's energy in, energy out, think about what you ate for breakfast this morning. Did you eat a bowl of photons? Did you eat a bowl of microwaves or radio waves? No, you ate mass, and mass is not included in the first law of thermodynamics. So when you're consuming food, you're consuming energy and mass. And that's not, it completely invalidates the equation of thermodynamics from the caloric, energy balance model. You're not consuming energy, you're consuming mass as well. So you have to understand what energy is. Imagine you're a giant standing at the shores of the ocean, and you scoop down and you try and cup a handful of a wave out of the water, and you pick it up and you look at it. You don't have the wave in your hand anymore. You just have water, because the wave isn't the ocean. The wave is something that the ocean is doing. It's not something separate from the ocean. It's something the ocean is doing. That's what energy is. Like a photon expresses itself in many different frequencies. You've got radio waves, microwaves, X-rays, the visible light spectrum, gamma rays, ultraviolet, and all that is the photon expressing itself in different, more or less energetic frequencies. So when you consume food, it has potential energy, but it's not really energy, it's just mass. And the human metabolism is not really much more except the process of breaking down larger molecules into smaller molecules. And when the chemical bonds are broken, as these molecules break down, they release potential energy in the form of heat, until you get down to the mitochondrial level, where the mitochondria convert glucose or fat into ATP, which is adenosine triphosphate. So it's a there's 3 phosphate atoms. And when you perform an action or a function, when you blink your eyes, when you do a push-up, when you your heart beats, anything that your body, any function that your cells carry out that requires energy, the ATP is broken down into ADP, which is adenosine diphosphate. So the ATP molecule loses a phosphate atom, and the chemical bond is broken that releases the potential energy for heat, and that's what's used to power your cells. And regulate your body temperature and all of that. So mass never actually becomes energy, ever. The mass that you consume only leaves your body through excretion. It's not like you take like 5 pounds of firewood and put it into a wood burning stove, and you burn it all, and then you measure the ashes, and that's how much weight that's been removed from that wood. Your body doesn't burn energy. Your body doesn't burn food. It doesn't burn calories. Calories are a unit of measurement. It's like saying you're consuming calories is like saying you consume inches or liters or something. It doesn't have any it doesn't have any physical reality. It's just a unit of measurement. So your mass never becomes energy. So when your ATP breaks down to ADP, you've got that phosphate atom. That atom doesn't just disappear. It's there. So it either gets recycled, upcycled, or excreted. Either when you go to the bathroom, or when you sweat, when you tear up or whatever, and when you breathe. When you breathe, you don't see anything coming out, but there's mass coming out every time you exhale. There's molecules. It's gas, but it still has mass. That is the only way you lose weight, is through excretion. The mass in your body never converts the energy in the Einstein relativistic sense, where matter and energy are inconvertible. So you don't burn mass into energy. The mass never becomes energy. And then when you look at this is very a long explanation, but it's important. When you look at how calorie metrics are derived, they have this thing called a bomb calorimeter. And I don't know the exact specifications of a bomb calorimeter setup, but you have basically a vessel that sits in a specific volume of water, and there's a food item in the middle of the bomb calorimeter, and that food item is burned. And the heat that is let out from that burning, the temperature that it raises the water outside of it, becomes the caloric determination of that food product. So if it raises it 2 degrees, it's 2 calories or something like that, to that extent. And you think about that, and then you think about human metabolism, and you think about that, and you think about the human metabolism, and you might come to the conclusion that the human metabolism is quite a bit more complex than this simple little bomb calorimeter. And finally, the caloric values determined by that process can legally be off by plus or minus 20%. So there's like a 40% margin of error. So again, I keep in my mind, I keep going back to the gym bros, that because I'm friends with so many of them. I'm still a gym bro at heart, who are, completely bought into the caloric model. If you want to use caloric values as a way to measure the amount of food that you're eating so that you can increase or decrease according to what you want to do, if you want to bulk or you want to cut, that obviously has some utility. But for the average person who's just obese and sick, and they want to lose their fat and get healthy again, calories are absolutely useless. And going by the eat less, move more model that whole thing is predicated on is just marketing. I mean, Coca-Cola spent hundreds of millions of dollars funding studies showing that exercise was more important than diet. It's all marketing. So when you go by that, you're not eating enough. If you're just eating the same foods that made you fat and sick in the first place, and then you start eating less of those, well, those foods were already nutritionally insufficient anyway. Now you're eating even less of it, and you're moving more. So your body's like, I need, your body's like, I need more, and you're hungry all the time, you're weak all the time. And for most people, it's absolutely miserable and they fail. And that's basically the reason why they're going to fail, because it's a really, especially when it's all hormonal. Like if you regulate your hormones and especially your satiety and your storage hormones, storage being insulin, like you really can't store fat in the absence of insulin. So one of the easiest way you can lose fat is by not blasting your insulin, so that you're not storing fat. You're not, the insulin's not converting glucose into fat to be stored. And if you eat a nice, healthy, fatty meal, your satiation hormones are going to keep you from overeating. I know when I was bulking in bodybuilding on a keto or a carnivore diet, it was absolutely miserable, because when your body's hormones tell you not to eat, they're very, very serious about it. When you're not hungry and you're trying to eat more, eating becomes very uncomfortable. Like it's
Mm-hmm.
almost like it activates your gag reflex. You just don't want to eat, and you have you have to eat because you're trying to get bigger, and it's just miserable. It's just like there's almost like you want to vomit. It's so uncomfortable. So it's much easier to just eat a proper diet that doesn't blast your insulin, to get healthy, than to just restrict calories. It's way easier, way more comfortable, way more effective.